Good morning, Boker Tov. Welcome back to 10 Minutes of Meaning. Please feel free to come up, pull up a chair. We learn Sefer Tanya together. We remain grateful to Michael and Marilyn Fidak for the generous sponsorship of 10 Minutes of Meaning. Please help yourself to a coffee, slushy, or pastry in the lobby. I'm wishing everyone a good Yontif. You say good Yontif. What is the Yontif? The Yontif is Yud Beis and Yud Gimel in Tammuz. In the world of Chabad and Lubavitch is a Yontif. The Free Gedikar Rebbe's release from prison yesterday was informed of his release, and today Yud Gimel was the release itself, and because of that, it is a Yontif, and celebrated in different ways. Did you say Tachanan in this minyan? The minyan said Tachanan, but Dr. Wolf did not. So it is a Yontif for everybody. Not saying Tachanan is somewhat of a Yontif. So on the 12th of Tammuz, 1927, the Frierdiker Rebbe got the news that he was to return home from exile, and the following day he was finally released. For 11 years, he had waged a courageous battle against the Soviet regime, a solitary leader standing firm for Yiddishkeit. And it all started in 1927. And after that enduring brutal imprisonment and narrowly escaping death, he was able to get out. And therefore it is the Chag HaGeula for him and those who follow. Okay, we're on Sefer Tanya, Perek Gimel. In the beginning of Perek Gimel of Sefer Tanya, we've been learning about the anatomy of the soul. The first Perek was about the animal soul, the nefesh bami, the animal soul that we're not trying to slaughter or purge, we're trying to train and elevate. Second parak was about the chilek alakam yimal mamish, the godly soul, literally a godly soul inside us. We don't have to look and search, try to find evidence or proof for God's existence elsewhere. All we need to look is in the mirror, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is inside mamish, literally inside each and every one of us. And now the third parak, now that we've established the two souls that are within each person, that struggle, who's the core identity, who's the real us. Now we get to the anatomy of that real soul. And we began last week that within the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, within the three souls or layers of the soul that we have, there are 10 spheros. And the 10 spheros that are, and we gave the example, a white light that's coming into a prism comes out as the different colors of the rainbow. So the Or Ein Sof, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light that goes into the prism of Tzimtzum or Hishtalshalos, where he is constricting himself in order to make himself accessible and a revelation to the world, comes out as the 10 spheros. The 10 spheros are divided into two parts. The first three are the emos, the mothers, the matriarchs of these attributes in the world, and then the next 7 are what are called the kfelos, are the kfulos. They're the 7 doubles. They're the letters Beis, Gimel, Daled, Kaf, Pei, Resh, and Taf, that can have a dagesh or no dagesh, that can be soft or can be hard, that can be justice or that can be compassion, ways that HaKadosh Baruch Hu expresses himself. We're going to focus on not the 7 kfelos, the kfulos, but the first 3 emos, which are intellectual, which are cognitive. And the first 3 are chachma, bina, and das. So Shiva Simei Binyan, the Baal Tanya said, the last 7 of the 10 spheros are the 7 days of creation, because those are the midos in this world, chesed, gvura, tiferes, and so on. And similarly, just like the world, and just like Hashem kiviyachol, we can access him through the 10 spheros, his Or Ein Sof, his radiating light that we can't begin to comprehend or understand, that is entirely beyond us, that we can't know be'etzem, that Or Ein Sof, he expresses himself through these 10 spheros, and so too all of creation, and so too in understanding ourselves and having a self-awareness. The 10 spheros are the decoder ring. The 10 spheros is the language that we use to best understand ourselves. The first 3 are the emos, the cognitive chachma bina das, and then the next 7 are the midos, which are the different chesed, gvura, tiferes, and so on. So chach b'nefesh ha'adam shenechlekes l'shtayim seichel umidos. We can divide the 10 attributes or spheros within ourselves into 2 categories. The first 3 are the seichel, they are the self, the intellect, the cognitive, and then come the midos, which Rav Chaim Miller translated as emotions, and Rav Steinsaltz translates as drive, whatever word you want to use to translate, but the midos, the character traits, the way we operate and navigate the world. So aseichel, kol chachma, bina, and das, these first 3, which is the anatomy of the soul, which is what the Sefer, what the Tanya is all about, and what Chabad, chachma, bina, and das, is all about. Aseichel, kol chachma, bina, and das. The human intellect, like the divine, has 3 levels, chachma, bina, and das. Now these aren't synonyms. We don't repeat. We don't have words that mean the same thing. if we have 3 words describing intellect, they must have subtle or even more than subtle differences between them, and that's what we need to unpack. What's the difference between Chachma, Bina, and Das? We first find it by Betzalel. When the Kodesh Baruch Hu says that Betzalel at a very young age distinguished himself to be the architect and the general contractor of the Mishkan, the designer of the Mishkan, what made him have that position of prominence was that he contained, the Kodesh Baruch Hu himself testified about him, that he had Chachma, Bina, and Da'as. So Hamidos hein Avas Hashem u'pachtov yiraso lefaro. So the Seichel, the intellect, is Chachma, Bina, and Da'as, and they express themselves in the emotion or the drive within us, how we navigate, operate the world, the feelings, the interconnection, love, fear, reverence, and so on. So what the Baal Tanya now is going to do is try to unpack these 3, the Chachma, Bina, and Das, because what really defines us, the self-awareness we have, the way we can regulate ourselves interpersonally in our relationship with Hashem, with ourselves, and the world, is by engaging those 3 attributes of the intellect, the Chachma, Bina, and Das, which are the emos. These are the mother, the matriarchs of all the other emotions and drives that we have. In other words, people wake up, people live in each day, and they feel, I have emotions. I can't control them. What can I do? I get angry. I get envious. I'm jealous. Or I have arrogance. I'm prideful. Or I get anxious. Or they feel these emotions overtake them. They're passive and fatalistic to them. They have no control over them. They can't regulate them. They can't determine them. I have these emotions and they define me and they are who I am, and what can I do about it? And what the Baal Tanya says, really way ahead of his time, what modern psychology is only still catching up to today, is that all of the so-called feelings, emotions, drives within us, they stem and they come from our thoughts. It's what we think about, what we concentrate on, what we focus on, what we marinate in. Our thoughts give birth to the emotions and drives. It's not that the emotions and drives are born within us or they overtake us or we can't regulate them, but rather all those emotions and drives, everything in us is born, is conceived, and then given birth to by the thoughts that we have. The word simcha, for example, he doesn't say this, the Alter Rebbe, but the word simcha is sam moach, where you put your thoughts. Happiness is not an emotion. Happiness is a decision that we make. If you focus on what you have, not what's missing, you'll find yourself happy. Happy is not an emotion. Never say, what can I do? I don't feel happy. Who said happiness is an emotion? Happiness is a decision. It's a decision. Modern psychology and research has caught up that don't wait to feel happy and then smile. Do you know that if you smile, you engage micro muscles in the face that release endorphins that yield a feeling of happiness? If you make the decision, if the thought is to smile, if the thought is to be positive, as the Rebbe used to say, think good and it'll be good. If you think, this is where it comes from. If you think good, what we think about gives birth, conceives, and then gives birth to the feelings that we have, not the opposite. Not the opposite. It's not that I have, what can I do? This is how I feel. How am I supposed to change it? How am I supposed to regulate it? As has often been said, we are thermostats, not thermometers. A thermometer tells you your temperature. It just reports what's happening. A thermostat lets you change your temperature. So we make the mistake of thinking that we're thermometers, and we just report to one another. I'm angry. I'm impatient. I'm happy. I'm jealous. We just report like a thermometer. But we're a thermostat, not a thermometer. We can regulate the temperature. We can set the temperature, and then our wife will come and change it. But at least we can try. At least we can try to set the temperature to start with. So the Alter Rebbe is introducing, again, way ahead of his time, and what research is only catching up to now, the notion that our emotions and our drives, they are born from what we think about. Chachma bina v'das nikru imos, u'makar lamidos ki amidos hem told us chachma bina and das. Chachma bina and das are called the mothers and source of the emotions, because emotions are the children of the intellect. How we feel, the drives that we have, how we operate and navigate the world is born from what we think about. And so much of the rest of Tanya, I am the farthest thing from an expert in it, but thank God the wonderful teachers I have who are helping me understand it and learn it and share it with you. So much of what Tanya is about is built on this principle, that if you think about Hashem, you'll come to feel and experience Hashem. If our emotions and drives are born from our thoughts, then imagine if we think about Hashem, contemplate Hashem, meditate about Hashem, then we'll come to have feelings for Hashem, which is also the reverse of what most people mistakenly think. Well, if I loved Hashem, then I'd think about him. If I felt him, if I saw him, if I loved him, if I feared him, if I knew him, then I'd come to learn about him. Then I'd want to spend time learning. Then I'd meditate about him. Then I'd think about him. No, it's the opposite. You got it backwards. Think about him, come to know him, and that will give birth to feelings that you'll have for him. In a letter written in 1805, this is in Rav Chaim Miller's commentary, in a letter written in 1805 defending Tanya to one of the critics, the Alter Rebbe revealed that this emphasis on meditative work was not his innovation. This is what he writes. In order for there to be reverence of Hashem, there must be deep contemplation and meditation, as stated in Likutei Amarim. Everyone in the region of Berlin and Ukraine, who's ever had a whiff of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and his disciples, knows the explanation of the Holy Zohar's teaching that Bina is the mother of the children. This is a teaching of the Zohar based on a pasuk in Tehillim, the Zohar, the Pardes Rimonim. This teaching, anyone who's in the Ukraine, Mirz Hashem, I'm going to Ukraine next week. You got to cross the border by foot. Mirz Hashem will all go well. So anyone who's been in the Ukraine, I'm looking forward to having a whiff of the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. That's the wording of the Alter Rebbe in this letter. Anyone in Ukraine who's had a whiff of the teaching of the, I'm hoping to take a whiff of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, knows this explanation of the Holy Zohar, that Bina is the mother of the children. The children are love and reverence of Hashem, and they're born through meditation and deep contemplation on the greatness of Hashem, each person according to his ability. Just as it's impossible to give birth to a child without a mother in our religion, so too, I threw that in, it's impossible to revere God without meditative work. That's the Alter Rebbe's letter. Just like it's impossible to have a child who doesn't have a mother. Every child by definition has to have a mother. So you also can't have Yiras Hashem without its mother. And what's the mother of Ava and Yiras Hashem? Contemplative work, thought process. The mother is the work that we do, the contemplative work. That's the mother of these midos that we have inside us. Ubiura Inyan, just give me 2 more minutes. The divine rational soul intellect, which is the power to understand all things. What distinguishes us from the animal kingdom? What gives us that godly soul is the intellect. How we come closest. Remember, he quoted the Rambam in the first paragraph. And it's true the Maharal disagrees, but the Alter Rebbe went with the Rambam, that what gives us the greatest access, the greatest connection to Hashem is our intellect, that capacity to think, our intellect, our cognitive ability, the divine, rational soul inside us, that intellect is the power to understand all things. Nikra b'shem, the first word in Chabad Chachma, is called Chachma, because Chachma is a conjunction of 2 words, Koach, Ma. It's called Chachma, which is the fusion of the 2 words. Koach, the power of Ma. What's Ma? What? Ma is what? This is also based on a Zohar. Koach, Chachma, if you have to distill and define what is Chachma, Chachma is the power to say, what is this? Chachma is curiosity, inquisitiveness, wanting to understand, wanting to pursue, wanting to be a mavakish. Chachma is the koach of a yid who asks ma. Doesn't just passively accept, but seeks to understand, to learn. Koach, what is koach? Min koach ala poel. Koach is potential. So the level of chachma, an idea, is raw and undeveloped. Its precise contours need to be drawn out by bina. We're going to go from chachma and bina and das. And the difference between the 3, the chachma, the bina, and the das. What is the difference between the 3? So, for example, this example is given often. Chachma is the beginning. Chachma is the initial thought or idea. So, for example, a person decides they're going to build a house. Before you want to accomplish that feat, first you have the idea, I want to build a house. How many square foot? What's the design? What's the layout? How will it work? What are the materials? Chachma is the what? I want to build a house. Bina, the second step in the process, is weighing all the options and the possibilities, contemplating, strategizing, analyzing. And then das is the absolute final decision. Here are the plans. Here's what's going to happen. And that is the journey. All 3 happen in the process of thought, but from Chachma, the initial idea, the ma, what, to the Bina, the Havdil Bain, to distinguish between this and that, to strategize and analyze, and then Das. Das is the final conclusion. Here's the information, here's the data, here's the plan, here's the conclusion. So the first power is the Chachma, Koach of Ma. Ukshemotzi Koch el HaPoel, when you bring the potential in Chachma to action, Shemizbonin b'sichel havin davar la'ashur la'amko, through meditating in your mind to clarify an idea. So that's Bina. Bina is Lahavdil Bain, Bain. Motzei Shabbos, when do we insert Atachon Antanu? When do we insert Havdalah into the Amida? In which bracha? We had 19 to choose from. Which one do we insert it in? Into Atachonin. The Gemara Megillah wonders why. Why in Atachonin? Because if there's no Bina, there's no Chachma. So Atachon Antanu is in Atachon Antanu we say if there's no Havdalah, there's no Chachma. Havdalah is the capacity to distinguish ben Kodesh L'chol, ben Yisrael La'amim. Havdalah is the ability to see between this and that. The word Bina comes from the word Bain. Bain means Lahavdil Bain, to distinguish between this and between that. Mitoch Eza Davar Chachma Muska B'Sichlo, beginning with the Ruach Chachma, Nikra Bina. So the Ruach Chachma is Koachma. It's asking what? It's the initial thought. Then Bina. What's the difference between this and that? Analysis and strategy. Ve'hein heim av ve'im hamolidos avas Hashem ve'yiraso u'pachto. So we'll pick up with Amir Hashem next time to get from Chachma to Bina to Das, and to see how all that all happens. Those are the emos, the thoughts, what we think about, what we ask about, our level of curiosity, inquisitiveness, our koach ma, to ask what, to have ideas, initial thoughts, and then to take it to the next level of Bina, lahavdil bein this to bein that, and then to take it to the next level of Das. All that Chachma, Bina, and Das gives birth to the next 7 of the Sfiros, gives birth to the Midos, to the emotions and drives, which are what our lives are all about. We are off for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll resume in 3 weeks, Amir Hashem, from today. We'll post the complete schedule in our WhatsApp group, so you can stay posted. Should be here, Besoros Tovos, Yeshuas, V'Nachamos. Have a good Yontif, Yud Gimel, Tammuz.